Well, in your last article, you mentioned the power play. The power play's got to get right. They had 3 power play goals against Evansville, so on paper, Friday's game pretty good for the power play. But what are you looking for in the power play? What are some of the things that they need to do to get that straightened up? Because obviously, that's a big factor, especially when you hit the playoffs.
Yeah.
You've got to take advantage of power play.
I think they'll be fine once they get the bodies back. You know, missing Crowder on a power play, you're starting every power play with a face-off win. You know, that takes pressure off. Missing Sidlowski on the point, he just lets everybody else relax. That's what they need to do. They need to relax on the power play because they had been scoring. I mean, and, you know, it's just like I said, everybody's trying to do too much. They're trying to be too fine, too perfect. Just run it and go for the rebounds. You know, I mean, they're not a pretty goal-scoring team. They are a go in, get the shot off as you're getting your block knocked off team. You know, I mean, and Frazee's really, really good at that. And, you know, him coming back from the injury, that's a factor. But, you know, I mean, just look at Sidlowski's goals on the power play are all from, like, the dots in, and it's where Frazee's in front, and Mbach dug the puck out of the corner. They're not a pretty power play team. They just need to remember that kind of thing.
You mentioned guys doing too much a couple times already. They've taken some uncharacteristic penalties recently.
Gosh.
How much of a factor is that in those penalties?
Well, and they've been unsportsmanlike on top of that. I mean, so you're, instead of going to the box for 2, you're going for 4. Keep your mouth shut. You know from the past few games that the refs are not buying it. They're not accepting it. You know, they don't want to hear it. So why, and it's different guys too. It's not one guy. I mean, that's what's funny. It's like, keep your mouth shut and let your coach work for you. You know, I mean, and Gary's not shy about that either. You know, I mean, you're just gonna, it's just, I think they're tired. I think that's part of it, but it's like, they're all feeling the pressure, you know, because those other guys aren't there to take up the slack. They all are trying to pick up that slack, and it's like, just play and do the system. You guys are fine. This is the team that went to South Carolina and was 2-0-1 when, you know, this week they played, you wouldn't expect that at all.
Right.
You know, they played a tougher schedule last weekend and did great, but they did it at home, and then they're feeling it, and they want to perform and that kind of thing.
Going forward, what do the Komets need to, A, shore up aside from the power play in the second half of the season, and B, continue? What do they have to keep rolling?
Well, they got to figure out, I think Gary made a mistake this week. And I think he reshuffled his forward lines again. And I know what he's doing. He's trying to find cohesiveness. And maybe he should have just left it go, you know, and let it settle down. And because these guys have shuffled so much of late with all the turnover and stuff, I think that was a mistake. I think you gotta figure out what their lines are. Leave them alone. Let them figure it out. He's got to work on maybe one defensive pairing. Who's going to be that spot? You know, Daniels and Leach, I would leave them alone for like the next 10 years and sign them to 10-year contracts, you know. But you got to figure out what's going on with Cody Soul. You got to get Cody, get his head on straight and get him comfortable. And because he and Bartz are so good together, except Cody's like, he's been struggling the last week or so, big time.
Well, and you love to have a guy with his physical
Oh,
presence out
definitely,
there.
yeah. It's just like, you guys got to be the Bang brothers, and maybe that's it. You just worry about banging and don't worry about jumping into play. And then you got to figure out, Lacasse and Martin, I think, have been really good. Really good. I mean, it's like they just kind of fit hand in glove. And then you're going to get Tam back. You still got Krug waiting. You know, I mean, you're fine on defense. Like I said all year, they are going to be, the defense is going to be their best part of the team come playoff time.
One of the questions I think that still kind of has to be answered is, Kelly was the guy that fought. And, you know, as you get throughout the playoffs, people don't want to take penalties, and fighting becomes less of an issue. But you do need a tough guy out there, a guy that you know is going to stick up for his teammates. So Krug has been that in the past, in other stops that he's been. Who's going to be the guy if Cayley isn't a guy that's willing to throw down the gloves every night, or in some cases physically shouldn't throw down the gloves every night? Who's going to be that guy?
They need that. They desperately need him back. And he's not going to be able to fight right off the bat. And fighting, as you can see, as the games go along, it's less and less a factor. But he can still hit. You need Garrett Mears to figure things out. And you need him to make the progression because he's a great forechecker. He's fast. He's mouthy. He's a pest. He's a rat. He's ornery. Opponents hate playing against him. But he's got to remember there's another half of the ice, too. And he's got to be more disciplined that way. One thing that the Komets desperately need right now, especially with Paul out, they need another center. Right now, you've got CJ playing some center. He's done a great job. You've got Pistilli playing center, and he's done a great job. But that weakens your forwards. That weakens your wings. And both those guys are good at that. So I still think they need one more center. And maybe that's what they look for if they go for a trade or something like that.
When we take a look at Komets in the past, they have historically gotten off to a slower start and then flipped a switch late. So having so much success in the first half of the season, I know that the roster is turned over all the time, year to year, but that trend, how do they continue that success and make sure that it isn't a reverse of the history that the Komets have had first half, second half?
And it's like Kaylee said last week, he'd rather be an awful first half and a great second half because everybody's going to remember the second half. Mm-hmm. If they have a fair second half this time, everybody's going to remember that. Nobody's going to remember the start. That's why they have to get him and Paul Crowder back in the room and playing. Those two guys are the two that can hold everybody accountable because nobody ever questions their effort or their desire or the fact that they're playing smart hockey. And right now the Komets are not playing the smartest hockey. They need those two back there to hold guys accountable and say, come on, you're smarter than that, you're better than that, you know what you're supposed to do. Plus, they're really, really good at picking up for everybody else. I mean, they're really good at making sure everybody knows where they're supposed to be. It's like when Paul gets the puck, the game slows down. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be when he's out there, And they really miss that. I mean, those are two, everybody cracks on Schrocky because he doesn't have the points, but Schrocky leads the whole league in the stuff that doesn't show up on the score sheet, The block shots, the forechecking, the making sure guys are in the right spots, the keeping everybody up.
Chasing down a puck in the corner.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, saying the right thing on the bench, stuff that just never shows up.
Final question. If you had to give a letter grade, we're going to play old school, to the Komets' first half performance, what would it be?
I think it's got to be an A.
Yeah?
I mean, I don't know how you do any better than 37 games without back-to-back losses. I mean, we thought at the start of the year when they were playing so well, it's like, well, their schedule must be weak. But that didn't matter because of the way they were beating those teams. I mean, they were just smashing them. Mm-hmm. And now, they go to South Carolina and think, oh, okay, well, here it comes. Those are good teams. Greenville's just a really good team. And you're thinking, oh, okay, they're going to get smoked. The goalie they beat goes up to the NHL next week. It's insane, you know? I mean, and they beat him twice, I mean, it's just you got to give it an A. I don't know how you do much better than the best start in team history. I really don't. This is the best record they've ever had in 63 years at the halfway point.
That's not too bad.
No, it's kind of tough to argue with.
Yes, it is, and we will be back for the second half of the season every Monday on Inside the Zone. Hoping the Komets can keep it up as they have had a fantastic, historic first half of the season. For Blake, I'm Glenn. We'll see you then.